5 men were found dead in the mountains. That alone is not unusual. What is unusual is who they were. These were not men built for isolation or exposure. They relied on routine, on familiarity, on the assumption that help would come when it was needed. They were capable of making decisions, but not built to survive being abandoned by every system meant to catch them when something went wrong. At least one of them lived long enough to understand that, long enough to try to hold on, long enough for survival to become a matter of time, not panic. And that is where the story breaks. Because when people this vulnerable are left to die, the question is no longer how they got lost. It's why no one intervened before the outcome became inevitable. This case isn't disturbing because 5 men disappeared. It's disturbing because they were never as protected as they should have been. Welcome to the House of 6. Tonight we present Stillness, Snow, and the Space Between. This is the story of the Yuba County. Welcome to the House of 6. I'm Jen.
I'm Jared.
It is rainy and cold and yucky outside.
It sucks.
It does. And so we are here to bring you some joy with some very awful stories. That's what we do here on this podcast. Have you ever heard of the Yuba County 5?
Yuba County?
Yuba County.
Yuba County.
5.
Nope. Maybe the Yuba County 3, but not the 5.
I don't know that story.
No,
You'll have
I'll
to tell it to
you.
me someday. It's probably very exciting.
Yeah, that was a stupid joke. Anyway.
Yep.
Yuba County 5.
Yep. You don't know what it's about?
No.
It includes 5 people.
Check.
Yep. So I'm breaking my rule just a little bit, and I've actually gone past my line in the sand for timeline.
Okay.
As it goes, because this happens in 1978. So I'm breaking the rules a little bit
That's
here.
all right. It's all right.
It is. This is a very interesting story, and it's pretty sad because it involves some vulnerable humans, which I guess we're all vulnerable. We're just, soft bags of flesh.
I can't even go anywhere with that.
And so I guess we all are in some way, but this is a little bit extra. So it is very sad, and I'm going to try to be as sensitive as possible.
Don't cry. Not today. Not today.
I've already covered my quota of crying today.
True.
So, which is really funny because I don't cry very much, but...
Nope.
The world's a weird place right now, and it's just a little stressful. So sometimes you got to stop watching the news and turn it off and take a mental health break and just be with your family, be with your pets and your kids and your spouses and your friends. And you got to take a moment to enjoy the things that you're supposed to enjoy in life.
Boom, 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 boom. This has been a PSA.
Yeah. I didn't even recognize the jingle. Yeah, this is true. I wish I knew what were the PSAs that were for after school specials and stuff. They were called something really specific.
I only remember the one that was I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill.
Yeah. And then there was that terrifying one in the 80s that goes, "It is 9 p.m. Do you know where your children are?" And most parents in the 80s were like, you know what? As a matter of fact, I've forgotten.
Yeah, right.
Because children of the 80s literally were raised on garden hoses and luck most of the time.
I liked it.
I mean, you liked it.
But I'm older than you, so I lived a little bit. I was, a little bit more in the 80s than you. You lived through the 80s.
I was 100% alive through the entirety of the 80s.
That, but I was in a different...
You trying to have a wise moment here?
No, because that's bullshit when people do that to me.
We just talked about that. You know what? You're as wise as you are wise.
Thanks.
And you are welcome.
All right.
bringing the heaters. I don't know what that means. Okay, so we are going back to 1978, and we're going to talk about the Yuba County 5.
Okay.
Alrighty? There's a train in the background, people. I'm just going to keep going. There's nothing that I can do about it because we live near some tracks.
Well, you'd think that it was in our backyard, but it's really not that close.
It's really not. So, in any event, we're going to take a little step back in time. So let's go back to the 1970s. And I will say that by the late 1970s, life for adults with developmental disabilities looked different than it does today. And it also a generation earlier where they were just like, nope. I don't know what happened to that kid, but he went away and that's what happened. Not passing any judgment here. For adults with developmental disabilities, they worked jobs, they joined leagues, they went out together. They were expected to move through the world without constant supervision, and most of the time that worked. In small towns in Northern California, familiarity carried more weight than people realized. Faces were known, habits were predictable. When a group of men did something that they'd done before, it didn't register as risk, regardless of who those men were and how they functioned in society. Normal behavior was obviously proof that everything is fine. Things are just going around like they should be. And safety in that environment was something people assumed rather than something that they actively monitored. Trouble was expected to look obvious. You were supposed to know, like be able to tell just by what was going on there. So anytime there were disruptions, it was really hard to miss. And subtle problems didn't necessarily trigger alarms because they didn't look like emergencies. I'm going somewhere with this. All right, I'm laying the groundwork here. Because this case sits in that gap between what felt ordinary and what should require some actual attention. All right?
All right.
All right. So we're going to jump right into the case here. And we're going to talk about the 5 men that are at the center of this. All right, so I'm going to give a little bit of details. Stick with me because I think that it's important to talk about these people and make sure that we give them their due. I don't want to gloss over this in any way. So first we have William Sterling, 29. He lived with his parents. He is reported to have a mild intellectual disability. We don't really know what that means, because they didn't really give it any more thought than that. All right, that's what we have. But he is known for his friendly nature and his enthusiasm for sports. Sports is at the center of this, okay? Especially basketball. He followed routines closely and took pride in doing things the right way. Now, I get that because I'm a rule follower, and if there is a rule, I will follow it unless it's stupid. Then I don't want to. That's how that goes. And now we have Jack Hewitt. He is 24. He is the youngest of this group. He is reported to also have a mild intellectual disability. I don't exactly know what that means. He lived with his parents as well. He was quiet, good-natured, and eager to fit in. He followed the lead of others and rarely pushed against expectations. Okay. Then we have Jack Madruga. That is the best last name. It's got some personality.
Okay.
Yeah. He is 30. Now, he's usually the driver of the group, okay, because he has a car. And he is regarded as having learning differences or cognitive challenges. He liked the responsibility of owning a car. He lived with his mother, who described him as careful and dependable. Jack liked things to go according to plan. I also understand that, because when things don't go according to plan, I don't want anything to do with that. I get it. We have Ted Weir. He's 32, lived with his parents, also learning differences and challenges. Deeply attached to routine and structure. There's a theme here. He could become anxious when plans changed, and he depended heavily on familiar patterns to feel safe. And then we have Gary Mathias at 25. Unlike the others, he does not have learning or cognitive disabilities. He had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia.
Okay.
And had been prescribed medication to manage it. All all good. He lived independently in an apartment. He's the only one that lived by himself. He had served in the Army and was more capable of navigating unfamiliar situations. His family later emphasized that he was stable, he was thoughtful and resourceful, but consistency mattered. He was under the care of the VA and civil mental health services, so he was being monitored even though he lived by himself. And his family remained actively involved in his life, his condition, his stability. So all these men were doing okay. They had jobs, and they were not just acquaintances. They played organized basketball together as a part of a team called the Gateway Gators. Okay. It was a local group supported by a community program for adults with cognitive and developmental differences in the Yuba City, Marysville area, which we're just going to go forward and just say Yuba City, because it's too complicated otherwise. So they shared activities, games, practices, and then spent time outside of that together as well. And this is where many of their families said that their friendships solidified. All right? They bowled together. They went to dances. This is like a core group of friends. This is starting out great, which is sad. Ted Weir and Jack Hewitt worked at the same job through a community placement program. Jack Madruga was usually the driver when they went out together because he had a car, remember. William Sterling was deeply invested in sports and tried to never miss a game. He was into the basketball situation. And Gary Mathias joined the group more recently than the others, but had integrated quickly into their routines and social lives. Okay. Can I just sidetrack on basketball? And this is like a part of the story, and it's very integral to their lives, and I think that's amazing. I hate basketball the most.
You hate the squeaking of the noise, squeaking of the shoes. Yeah, you hate it all.
And my parents, I grew up in Arkansas, and my parents had season tickets to the Arkansas Razorbacks, and we would go to all of the games all the time and sit in these seats, and there was a guy behind us that there were metal walls on the side where the seats were, and the guy would bang on the metal walls. That probably did it for me right there. That solidified my hatred of basketball. Yeah. Anytime he would get excited or a bad play call or something like that, he would bang on the walls.
Yeah.
A metal wall.
That's annoying. That probably did. Probably the trauma you didn't need.
Trauma. Yeah. It was. But also the squeaks of the shoes on the floor, that's high. Like, what? Can they not have noise dampening situation on those floors? I guess the ball wouldn't bounce, right? I take it back. That was dumb. Anyhow. Ay. So all five either lived with family or within systems that assumed proximity, predictability, and some degree of oversight. They were being cared for. Their lives were structured around routine, work days, recreation nights, sporting events. They were capable of moving through familiar environments independently, but they depended on those environments to stay familiar, right?
Okay.
I know what that feels like. Once again, drawing a lot of parallels here. Now, by the late 1970s, community-based programs had largely replaced institutional care for adults with disabilities. The goal was integration, not separation. People with different diagnoses often shared the same vocational placements, recreation leagues, and social programs, not because that they were identical, but because those were the only structures that existed. So today, somebody like Gary with a mental illness, I don't think that he would be put into the same programs as somebody with cognitive disabilities.
Yeah, probably so.
Because I don't think that makes very good sense. But for all everybody explains, like, he was a nice guy and that this was a good group of friends. So I don't think that matters to this particular story. I'm not foreshadowing anything. Nothing about this group suggested the night would require more than a plan. That's the context in which this whole situation begins. All right. So the plan for the night was simple. On the evening of February 24th, 1978, the five men decided to drive from Yuba City to Chico to watch a college basketball game. UC Davis, was playing Chico State at California State University in Chico. I have never heard of any of those. I have heard of California.
Yeah. I think I've heard of UC Davis.
It rings a bell, but then I'm like, it's not a bell I have. So anyways, they left together in Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego. Okay. Do you know what kind of car that is?
Nope, nope.
Let's look this up.
I might. To me, it probably is going to be similar, if I had to guess, probably similar to like a Ford LTD.
I don't know what that means. Like that?
Yeah, it's similar to an LTD.
I don't know what an LTD is.
That's what Gami had.
She drove that car, like a similar car?
Oh, an LTD that had a 351 Cleveland V8 in it that was like fast as shit. That's why, and their air conditioner would part your hair because it was so strong, because the goddamn V8, being so strong. Oh yeah, it was hilarious.
Teeny drove a...
Dad used to give her shit
because she'd
car?
A sporty car?
It wasn't sport. No, it was ugly. It was a land yacht.
That one was sporty.
No, I don't think. Maybe.
So the plan was pretty straightforward. Drive to Chico, watch the game, return home afterwards. The next day was important to them as well. All 5 were scheduled to play in a Special Olympics basketball tournament. Families later said that they took those commitments seriously. They had talked about the tournament ahead of time, and plans had already been finalized for the next day. So they had a lot going on. They had some serious plans happening here, okay? There is no indication that they intended to stay overnight or deviate from the plan. The men were only wearing light coats against the cool temperatures of the upper Sacramento Valley at night at that time of year. Remember, we are in February. They did not bring extra clothes or supplies, and nothing suggests they expected the night to extend beyond the game and the drive home.
That you'll probably have to cut this out, but like all I can picture is 4 people with some type of needs.
There's 5.
No, I know.
Oh.
4 with, some type of, I'll just say special needs, of some sorts. And then the 5th person taking care of them all with diagnosed schizophrenia.
Like, John!
This is like...
Yeah.
What a great group to hang out with in a car. Like, I would want to listen to the conversations going on in this car.
It feels like they should not be going to Chico by themselves.
Probably so.
This feels like they shouldn't have. But again, we're in the 70s. Right. These men were afforded a certain amount of normalcy, which is great.
Right.
At the same time, it feels like this is something that they shouldn't have been doing without a degree of supervision. I will say in a lot of retellings of this situation, people call them boys. That's used a lot. And I think it's because of their disabilities and their cognitive abilities.
Right.
And I feel that that's somewhat rude. I think people tend to infantilize.
Right.
I don't know if that's the right...
I know what you're trying to say, if that's not it exactly, but yes.
I think they try to put some level of label.
Yeah.
And I purposefully chose not to do that because they were men.
Right.
And they were independent, and they were living fulfilling lives for this time frame, and I think that they were doing a great job. So I am just trying to give them as much respect as I possibly can in a, I don't know.
All right. Anyway, I'm not trying to sidetrack us, but...
No. Every time that I've heard this story, that I've watched other podcasts and things about them, I think about, oh my goodness, this is just bad. Like, these guys did not... obviously it's because we have the lens of knowing what happened now, but I don't know.
I don't know what happened yet.
You're about to. All right. So they arrive in Chico and they attend the basketball game. Everything goes as planned. The group was expected home early Saturday morning on February 25th. After the Friday night game, the drive would have taken them a little bit longer. So when they didn't arrive and didn't call, family members woke up and noticed that something's off. Parents began phoning each other around 5 a.m. on Saturday morning. None of the men had ever stayed out overnight before, with the exception of Gary. But even that wasn't typical. Families soon realized that all 5 were unexpectedly absent. So the families call the police, and according to later reporting, one mother was told by deputies that since the men were adults, law enforcement would generally check again later before filing a report, which was common procedural at the time. And I think a lot of times when you watch TV shows or documentaries, you hear they have to be missing for 48 or 24 hours before a missing person report can be submitted. That is not true. Just so you are all aware, you can report a person missing as soon as possible as you know is something that is wrong, and you have to tell the police, like, this is wrong, something's going on, it's not right, this is not normal. And woe behold anybody that tries to keep me from filing a missing persons report. I'll tell you that much, because they're not going to listen to me, damn it. Something's not right, and I know it.
What'd you do with his body?
Whose? So once the Yuba County Sheriff's Office had reports from concerned family, they started taking it seriously. Like, obviously something's going on here. So they began a search, and they eventually tracked down the men's activities that night, which we'll get back to in a second. But we're going to go in real time as to what all the families knew, okay?
Okay.
On Monday, February 25th of 1978, a U.S. Forest Service ranger saw the abandoned Mercury Montego in a snowbank on a remote mountain road in Plumas National Forest, which is near Rogers Cow Camp, and at an elevation of approximately 4,400 feet, which is way far from the expected route home. All right, this is not where this car is supposed to be. The ranger initially assumed the vehicle belonged to a winter skier or something rather than somebody missing, because there was no bolo or alert out at this point in time, because they told the families, well, these are adults, you got to give it some time. So it was not reported until February 27th. So immediately delaying the discovery of the location to law enforcement, right? So when the deputies finally did find out and they reached the car, so the location where the car was found, the road was snow covered but not impassable. It was still completely drivable. The car itself was not damaged, stuck, or disabled, but the keys were missing and the car was locked. Okay? There was enough fuel in the tank for the car to continue driving. It did not run out of gas. Investigators noted that the vehicle could have been turned around and driven back down the mountain. So it's just really weird that it stopped here, okay? There were no clear signs of a struggle inside or around the car, and 4 distinct sets of footprints were reported leading away from the car and moving uphill into the deeper snow. There were no other footprints indicating that this was a forced situation or a panic situation. Weather conditions had worsened overnight, with temperatures dropping and snow present at higher elevations. The men were not found in the immediate area around the car. Okay? This location of the car is a route inconsistent with the most direct or logical drive home. So this is just weird, this car. But this discovery shifted the search dramatically from a missing person along a known road to a wilderness search in remote terrain. This is the mountains.
Yeah.
In the winter, in February. This is not, okay? At a certain point in the search, the trail was lost due to snow, terrain, and drifting. So once the footprints led away from the road and then disappeared, authorities shifted from a roadside search to a large-scale wilderness search, and this included sheriff's deputies, search and rescue teams, volunteers, National Guard, helicopters even, when the weather allowed, and they were focusing on downhill paths where people normally go to seek help. They don't go up the mountain, they go down. They also were looking in cabins, ranger stations, any kind of shelter along the way, but they were also paying attention to roads, creeks, ravines, things like that. So they were doing their due diligence here. And this is an important factual point. Searchers did not expect the men to continue uphill. So much of the early effort was focused on lower elevations and likely routes back to civilization, right? But weather has severely limited the search because of heavy snowfall. They started to see blizzard conditions, and there were even risks of avalanches at the time. So this is a bad time for this search to be occurring, and at least one search team reportedly had to be rescued after becoming trapped in the snow. So as a result, large sections of the area could not be safely searched, and some efforts were suspended to be resumed later. Resumed later. Sometimes I just trip up on words. There's nothing I can do about it. I have to wonder what goes through your brain sometimes, because most of the people that listen to this podcast won't hear all of the trip ups because I edit it because nobody wants to hear all of that shenanigans. But sometimes I'll say a sentence like 4 times because it comes out weird, or I miss the S at the end of the word like times like I just did then. And then I'll say it like 4 times in a row, and he just sits here. He just sits here and takes it in and listens to it. And it's got to be boring. Because you got to look just as interested. See? The 4th time I say the sentence versus the first time I say the sentence. I usually get
more interested because I'm like, is she going to get it?
You're going to be like, I wonder also if people watching are like, why did he just look at her like that? That's because I said the same sentence 17 times.
Right.
And he's like, it's still going. It's happening. It's not happening. Anyhow, despite this extensive searching, none of the men were found. No personal belongings were recovered beyond the car, and no definitive explanation emerged. After weeks of searching with no success, active search operations were eventually scaled back, though the case remained open, obviously. But they're still in the dead of winter right here. They just had to wait at this point. The car was there, they saw the footprints, and then for months there was nothing. So during the search and rescue efforts, police start tracking down the men's activities that night, and they have pieced together the following chain of events, all right? After the game ended and the UC Davis team had won, the 5 men walked back to Madruga's car and drove a short distance to Bear's Market in downtown Chico. It was shortly before the store's 10 p.m. closing time. This is noted specifically by the store clerk because she was annoyed that somebody came in, this group of men came in, and were taking up so much time right before closing. And she remembered the group filling their arms with snacks, sodas, and cartons of milk before paying and leaving. This was the last time any of them were definitively seen alive. What is known in sequence is that after leaving Bear's Market, the 5 men got back into Jack Madruga's car and left Chico. No witnesses reported any kind of distress, urgency, conflict at that point. Now, we do have an alleged sighting of the men, and this is from Joseph Schoen's. This is the single most discussed post-store sighting that you will find in any discussions about this case and has been documented extensively. It's not the most reliable of sources, and I'll tell you why. There is a man named Joseph Schoen's in his mid-50s driving in the Plumas National Forest area on the night. His car got stuck in the snow while he was checking snowpack ahead of a planned cabin trip. I don't know what that means. And he reported suffering chest pains consistent with a mild heart attack, and he was waiting it out in his car. He actually did experience a heart attack, and that was later medically confirmed. But this is why this isn't necessarily reliable, because he was having a medical emergency. Right. It's kind of hard to pay attention when you're having I've never had a heart attack, but I imagine it's hard to pay attention when you're having a heart attack. So anyways, he claimed that around 11:30 p.m. he saw headlights and silhouettes of people. A group including what he thought were several men, possibly including individuals who could have been the missing men, stopped nearby. One version of this reported seeing additional figures, maybe a woman and child, near his car that night, but that has never been verified. What we do know is that he yelled out he was going to ask for help. The car lights went out and the voices went silent. Once this serious medical situation passed, he walked down the mountain, and this we have confirmed, he passed the abandoned Mercury Montego. He said that there were no people around it. Now, police did take his sightings seriously as a possible witness. The sightings did occur in the same general area where the Mercury is found. Obviously, he saw the car, but it's really hard to say whether he saw those men or not. It's like impossible to say. Now, I'm going to say this because other shows, podcasts, things like this have made claims that he was known locally for alcohol abuse and dishonesty. He had a police record for vehicle theft and drunk driving. There's also one claim that he may or may not have shit his pants while he had this medical emergency. Okay. And I just want to note that none of these are substantiated by the reports of the day. These came about later.
Right.
So I'm only mentioning them because I don't like it when dishonesty happens about, and I don't think anybody's purposely been dishonest about it. But I also think that people like a good story. Now.
Hard to lie about shitting your pants, but okay.
Now look, if you're going to shit your pants, a heart attack is the time to shit your pants.
Okay, noted.
I feel like that's one of those times where you're like, well, I shit my pants, but I was having a heart attack. Like, what are you going to do?
Clearly.
Now, that being said, A, don't ever have a heart attack on me. That's A. But B, if you shit your pants, I'm going to have a hard time not talking about it at some point later in our lives.
Okay. Okay.
I haven't shit my pants ever. Just saying.
Jesus, this conversation.
There's nothing wrong with it. It happens, I suppose. I've just never experienced it.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm not going to talk about it.
So you're saying that you
guys have more issues than
so you're saying you shit your pants.
There's a chance.
Well, I will say that there are various rumored sightings floating around online that claims men were seen in a red pickup after the disappearance. I don't have any primary reporting that proves this, so I can't say that it is or isn't true. And somehow this red pickup is associated with the situation that Joseph Shones saw, and then somehow they were like, we don't have it. All right. So for months, nothing else is found. Okay. This is all happening in February. Months go by. And now we are in early June of 1978. Why are you watching my hand?
I wasn't. I
saw your eyes going up and down watching my hand.
It wasn't intentional. It really was.
I am kind of a gesticulating.
I didn't even know that it was occurring. So.
Oh, okay. So anyways, by early June, snow in the Plumas National Forest had begun to melt enough to make higher elevations accessible again. Search efforts resumed in areas that had been unsearchable during the winter. So on June 4th, 1978, a group of motorcyclists exploring the area near Rogers Cow Camp. Who is Roger, and why does he have cows at his camp?
Maybe
it's
a camp for cows.
Like just for cows, or is it
Right.
a camp for people to go to spend time with cows? Or is it like a ranch?
It could be a ranch.
But how is that a cow camp?
You got me.
Anyways, these motorcyclists came across a U.S. Forest Service trailer. The trailer was used as a seasonal shelter by multiple people. It was stocked with supplies. It was not locked in a way that made entry impossible, but it was secure against the elements. They looked inside and they see a body. And they nope right out of there and they call authorities because they don't want anything to do with this. They did the right thing. They didn't go in. They didn't mess with it. They were like, shit. Ring, ring. Help. All right? So that's how that happened. Inside the trailer, investigators found Ted Weir, and he is no longer living. All right? He was found on a bed wrapped in several sheets. He showed extreme weight loss. His feet were badly frostbitten, suggesting he may have been unable to walk effectively. He was found wearing shoes that did not belong to him. Gary Mathias's shoes were found inside the trailer. These are two things that have been said. They never say that Ted was wearing Gary's shoes. Right. I think it's implied, but I just wanted to note that distinction because there's not...
Right.
I don't know. Weir had been eating some food from the trailer. Several cans had been open, and there was a P-38 military-style can opener in the trailer. Do you know what that looks like? It's the most basic.
It's one where they don't have a handle on it.
It's one where they don't have a handle. Yeah, it's just two pieces of metal. One has a notch, and the other one doesn't, and it's held together by a screw. I had to look it up because I'm like, what does that even mean? Yeah. So I'll get to it. He had beard growth indicating weeks, not days of survival. Medical examiners estimated he lived between 8 and 13 weeks after the disappearance. And this estimation comes from the degree of starvation that he was experiencing, the condition of his tissues, beard growth, and environmental exposure patterns. I'm going to try to be as clinical as, you know how I get. I get a little sad when I talk about this stuff, so I'm trying to be respectful and not be gross. But I gotta tell you what happened. Okay. So Weir was extremely weakened by the starvation, and although food had been opened, the record does not establish whether he opened it himself. There is suggestion that when he was getting weak, he would not have been able to operate this can opener, which other reports of this make this sound like he was unable to operate a can opener of this style due to his cognitive abilities. And I don't think that's true. Like, this is still a can opener.
Right.
Like, you can figure out how to open. Like, this man was not dumb. He was not. And I don't like the implications. I'm just pointing that out. So anyways, let's just say he survived for a great deal of time. Inside the trailer, there was a large supply of food, canned goods, dehydrated meals, a propane tank and heating source that had been used, evidence of food that had been open and partially consumed, and there were matches and fuel available. So somebody could have survived in this trailer for a great deal of time. That's what it was there for, in fact. It was to save people that got stuck out on the mountain, right?
Yep.
But much of the food remained untouched. The trailer was roughly 11 to 12 miles from the abandoned car. So he walked 11 to 12 miles to this trailer, and entry appeared to have been made by forcing open a window, not a door. That meant he got there and he was fine to some degree. Now, as they continued to search around, Jack Hewitt was found about 2 miles from the trailer. He is also deceased, and so sadly, his father was involved in the search and present when he was found. He was fully clothed. His cause of death was exposure. There was no sign of trauma, no sign of long-term survival. He was partially decomposed because he was outside. William Sterling was found approximately 3 miles northeast of the trailer in a wooded area positioned between the trailer and the abandoned car, but closer to the trailer. His remains were scattered, consistent with animal activity. Yeah, right. It wasn't, just normal animal scavenging situation. He was wearing clothing, but he was missing his shoes. He died of exposure, and his remains were partially scattered. No signs of violence, no signs of prolonged survival. And then Jack Madruga was later found approximately 2.3 miles from the trailer along the general route between the trailer and the car, but closer to the trailer than the car. I don't know why this matters to me, but it does apparently. His cause of death was exposure, no signs of trauma, partially decomposed, but also no evidence that he survived for weeks. So these men were all out in the elements and they died because of it. Gary Mathias has never been found. Not alive, not dead, not remains, not any personal effects, nothing. He's never been We don't know. Okay. So, before June, the working theory centered on this group of men getting lost and then succumbing to the elements, right? After June, it was clear that at least one man had survived for weeks. He had shelter and food. This is where the case stops being about where they went and starts being about why their survival failed. Because of the car and the situation and how it was found.
Why it was even necessary.
Why it was even necessary. Because in theory, if they had just stayed with the car, they would have been cold, but they would have been fine.
Sure.
Because it was found a couple of days later. In theory, actually, it was actually found the very next day by a ranger. So just a little peek into what policing actually looked like in the late 1970s. You know, I like having this. What did not exist at the time, there was no National Missing Persons Database. There's no Amber Alert style rapid mobilization, if you will. Obviously, cell phones, we have no GPS. There's no standard protocol for adults, missing adults that are vulnerable. And there are no expectations at this point in time that if adult is missing overnight, that it's a problem to the police. In the 1970s, adults could not legally be declared missing immediately. Police often required evidence of foul play or evidence the person was endangered or being abused. Disabilities did not trigger that sense of urgency. I just don't think they knew any better. I don't think this was malicious by any means. But I will say here that for the standards of the time, law enforcement did everything that they were supposed to do. They did it all right, as a matter of fact. They took reports once the families pressed. They launched searches along the expected route. They involved search and rescue. They escalated to the National Guard. They continued searching for weeks, even though they had no result. And then they resumed searches when the snow melted and they could better access these areas. They did not immediately assume that these men ran away or dismissing family claims outright. Once the car was found, the response intensified. So they actually did everything right. They were just hindered by the tools available at the time.
Well, right. And the conditions and everything.
The conditions, yeah. And I don't say that. I think that's the first time I've ever said that on this podcast. They did everything right.
Right.
They just didn't have all the tools. Have I said that before?
I don't think so.
Most of the cases that we cover are old.
Yeah.
And
they don't have the tools.
They don't have any of the tools. I mean, they barely had fingerprinting in some of the cases that we've covered. So, I mean, also, I would like to point out that a lot of times they just trampled all over it and they let the neighbors come in the house.
That's your favorite part.
There are no neighbors here. This is the mountains.
Yeah.
It's Rogers Cow Camp. That's the neighbor. I still don't know what that means. I'm going to have to look that up. So the system definitely showed its limits here. Adult autonomy was working against them because the men were adults. There just was no sense of urgency. I don't think they would not frame them like we do as vulnerable adults. So I think that that's really sad. But, disability was not really operationalized at the time.
Right.
There just wasn't. The police treated it as there are 5 missing men.
Right.
Well, I don't know. Anyways, I don't know. All right. So now we have a list of theories, okay? Because we know what happened, but we don't know why it happened. So we got to theorize. And this is a long freaking list. Okay. So I'm going to try to get through them quickly. So the first theory number 1, is misadventure, disorientation, and then exposure, right? The men became disoriented after leaving Chico. They drove the wrong way. They realized it, stopped, perceived danger, or believed that the car was stuck, maybe. Ted Weir had reached shelter and others did not, so this implies that they went off trekking through the snow trying to find safety. Some of them got lost along the way. Ted made it to shelter. It seems like he made it with somebody else. It's implied that it's Gary because the other men were further back. Contributing evidence to this is that the car was operational. It had fuel. It was locked. 4 sets of footprints led away from the car, uphill, oddly enough. There was no signs of violence. Autopsies list exposure, wilderness terrain, winter conditions. That's number 1. Okay. Theory number 2 is that in some way, Gary Mathias was a contributing factor or variable. Because he was not cognitively disabled, he had a mental health issue instead. He was the most independent member of the group, and he did rely on medication for his paranoid schizophrenia. He was never found. This implies that in some way he influenced the men to get out of the car or go the way that they did. And he and Ted made it to the shelter. The others didn't. And then he just noped right out of there for some reason.
Right.
For any reason. I mean, either he was going to find help or he was doing something nefarious. Usually when this theory is brought up, I'm going to be honest, they paint Gary in a poor light. As in he was up to no good because he had paranoid schizophrenia and therefore he was up to... I really get upset about that because that implies that people with schizophrenia are up to no good, and that is false.
Okay. I was going to say you're correct, first off. But if you have schizophrenia, you could be up to no good and not mean to.
Now that's... You could not mean to do things that you do. That is true. I mean, there are reports of people with schizophrenia that have hallucinations. They hear things. They could act on them. I will say that all reports of him leading up to this situation is that he was acting normally. He was following his routines, and that implies that he was on his medication properly. I can't say any more than that without being influencing.
No, I know. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So theory number 4 is that theory number 4 is that there was foul play or criminal involvement. People 1 to 7, I don't even know, but this red truck is implied that people stopped the car and they made the men get out of the car, and then things deteriorated from there. Somehow Ted and Gary got away. The other 4 lost along the way, and then that happened. Okay? Theory number... I don't know what theory I'm on. 5? Am I on 5?
Because I still felt like we went from 2 to 4, but I wasn't.
Well, I'm skipping some because some of them are dumb.
There you go. Okay.
Because technically this is theory number 8. We're on theory number 8.
We should not assign a number if you're going to remove numbers.
That's true. But as I'm reading them, because you got to realize it takes me like hours to research these things. And so when you're in the middle of it, you're just like, oh, I got to get another theory in there. And I'm like, this is dumb. What was I even thinking?
All right. So theory number
8 is that they intentionally ran away.
Okay.
They were like, they're choosing to abandon their lives. They just want to disappear. They're tired of all this adult supervision, and they're not taking it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so they drove up that road and then got out. This theory's dumb. I'm going to say we're not considering it later because this is stupid. They had plans to be in the Special Olympics the next day.
Game to play.
This is a big deal.
Yeah, right.
They were really excited about it. So this is stupid. Okay, theory number 9. You're not going to like this one.
Okay.
What is it?
Don't tell me aliens.
Yeah, it's aliens. They were abducted by aliens and then apparently spat right out, and they...
Don't give me this bullshit.
People bring it up. It's stupid. Now, going back to theory number 7, because I skipped it, but I want to talk about it again.
Holy shit.
Okay? is that somehow Gary was separated from the group before the car was abandoned.
Okay.
Like, let's say the red pickup came around and they picked up Gary. Gary, I don't know, he took the keys.
Right.
Keys were never found, by the way. Ever.
Okay.
With any of the personal possessions, keys were never found. So Gary takes the keys with him, and the guys are like, oh no. And then they leave the car to try and find shelter. And then all of the things happen that we said. So that's theory number 7. Okay? That's all the theories.
Okay.
What do you think happened? What do you think happened?
Some of what you just said, because there were 4 foot, there were 4 sets of foot prints. The 5th being he left earlier, so therefore that could have been covered up or whatever by new snow, or whatever. So because he wasn't there, he was gone. He had noped right out for whatever reason or another. Maybe he was tired of their shenanigans. I don't know. So yeah, he was out. And then I guess if you don't have keys or whatever, you're like, well, what now? We got to start walking. And if they did have some challenges with the way that they thought, their thought process, they didn't know what to do. They just walked in the woods. So yeah, I think that would be what happened.
Yeah.
Now, why did he leave or where did he go? I don't know.
Why do you think they were there in the first place?
Good question. I mean, I wasn't thinking of that yet. Should have been. Don't know. Yeah, there's no good reason for that.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
really weird. So, they had made this drive before. It's implied that their families implied that they were familiar with the route. And I think that they would have followed normal patterns. Jack Madruga was a responsible dude with a car. In fact, he took great pride in this car. I don't think that he would have left it if he didn't think that he had to. My thought is that it was night. They were probably familiar with this drive, but it was nighttime, and they just took a wrong way for whatever reason. And they got to a spot. I think that they could have just gotten out. Maybe they stopped and they realized they were going the wrong way, and they got out of the car to maybe assess the situation, and they were talking. I feel like it makes perfectly good sense that tensions could have been high, and one of them threw the keys or dropped the keys. It's the snow. It fell. They couldn't find them, and then they panicked. I feel like it's entirely possible Gary could have just walked down the road even, where his footprints wouldn't have been captured.
Right.
And the other 4, for whatever reason, felt like the car wasn't safe anymore, and they just didn't know any better, and they walked into the snow to try to get help.
Yep.
For whatever reason, that car became unsafe to them. And I can imagine that they locked the car to keep it safe because they were responsible guys. And then it's also entirely possible because they said that Ted was found wrapped in a blanket, and that it appeared as if somebody had been taking care of him.
Right.
It's entirely possible that Gary made it to the shelter with Ted and tried to take care of him, and realizing that he was deteriorating and he wasn't going to make it, that he needed to go get help. And he left. I mean, people are lost in the woods and never found all the time.
Oh, I know, but it still goes back to those 4 footprints.
It's also the snow. I mean, what if one of them were walking? What if Gary took the lead and then said, "Walk in my footprints," and somebody else walked directly behind him?
Sure.
It was deep snow.
It worked for the cartoons.
It did. This one, just to be clear, I don't think that there was any foul play. I think that I don't think anybody else was involved. I think if Joseph Schoen's account was real and he did see what he thought he saw, it could have just been the men out of their car that were talking. And then when he shouted out for help, they got scared. That might have been the catalyst for them to run into the woods because they were like, for whatever reason, they sensed danger.
Yep.
And they didn't know what it was. That's entirely possible that his shout forced them into the woods.
Yeah, he was just having a heart attack.
He's just having a heart attack. Poor man. The reason that I decided to do this is it's just a really haunting and sad story.
Well, yeah, and the fact that we're all good friends and shared unique qualities in terms of their challenges, but all became good friends, and then tragedy struck. There you go.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's kind of frightening how thin the margin is if they had just made a different turn or the car had been reported earlier or they had cleared the road or it was a warmer night or I don't know. One person didn't go or it's just a sad story.
Thanks a lot.
From the impact of this case, what did it change after it happened? Nothing.
Right.
Almost nothing. This is the sad part. There is no sweeping reform. There's no law named after them or overhaul of missing persons procedures because of what happened. But I will say that cases like this accumulated over time, and they quietly exposed gaps in the system of how these people are certainly treated, but how they're managed on a day-to-day basis. So the concept of the vulnerable adult in missing persons investigations became very apparent. Earlier reporting thresholds for missing adults, I think police, I don't want to say took missing cases more seriously, because that's not true. I think they've always taken cases more seriously. But I think even the show called The First 48, the first 48 are important. Correct. Because
I say that,
that's where, when everything happens, right?
Also, and I wanted to ask this because I thought about it earlier when you talked about the missing person. Now we're talking about adult. We were talking about adults the whole time. Anyway, when did Adam, the young child that disappeared and was
Adam Walsh?
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember his last name. I know the father.
John Walsh.
When did that occur? Was it in the late 70s or early 80s? I want to say it was the late 70s.
He was the first. I'm going to look it up.
That's when some of the that's when John Walsh made some of the missing persons changes, didn't he? Or, because he
was a catalyst for so many of these things. This was in 1981. It was the early 80s.
Okay.
John Walsh is a reason for many sweeping reforms that happen in missing cases. Now, Adam Walsh was a little boy.
He was. We're not talking about an adult. We're talking about a child. Exactly.
He was 6 years old at the time. And I think there are cases that have come across that really made changes, like the Amber Alert, the young girl that was kidnapped. So I don't know where I was going with this, but
I brought it up.
I don't know where you were going with this.
Because it made me think about the changes. Actually, I thought about that because it was so significant when we were talking about the missing persons and how it's handled, et cetera, back then.
Yeah, I think John Walsh made some sweeping reforms in that just because he was interesting because he wasn't really an activist until after what happened to his son, which was absolutely horrific.
Yep.
And he really jumped in to change how missing children are treated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my sidetrack for the moment, but it was,
You almost got me crying bringing up Adam Walsh. That one,
Yep.
That one, that's one that I could never do. First of all, thank goodness it happens in the 80s. That's a case I won't touch, but it is
agreed.
No bueno. But I think we care now about this case because I think we understand the context a little bit better. We understand their vulnerability without stripping them of dignity, which they should have. And we understand that outcomes can be tragic and it's not necessarily malicious. So yeah, I think, these men did everything that they were supposed to do everything they could do to stay safe in a world where they weren't really protected very well, that we just didn't really understand how to protect them properly. And I think just bad things happen.
Yes, it does.
That sucks. I don't like that. I know that's why I have a podcast. So you would think that I'd be like,
Yeah.
yay, mystery.
Yep.
But not so much when the mystery is just sad. Like, I go all excited into these cases, and then I get to the end
Then
of
you
it, and
bring
I'm like,
yourself down.
why?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I have been, like, on the verge of tears at least 7 times in this discussion. I've held it together.
Let's close it out on an uptick. An uptick? An uptick.
What? Yeah. So what do you think of that one?
Yeah, it sucked. It's not good.
You're like, well, my day's gone all to crap.
The weather just got gloomier.
Yeah. But it's a mystery.
Yep.
And, you know, I will say that it's a tragedy of what happened to these men, but I think that we are drawn to mysteries and we want to solve them. The answer to this one, I think, is pretty mundane. It's just, that's what happens. So, yeah, if you're new here to the House of Six, we release episodes every other Tuesday. I'm doing pretty good at that.
You are.
You can find us on wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, TikTok, except don't watch those. They're terrible. Facebook, Insta, all the places. You should like us. You should subscribe. You should comment and tell us what you thought, or make suggestions for what we could cover in the future if you don't want to be bummed out.
True.
Okay?
Do it.
Do it. Yeah, I got some mysteries coming your way. Yeah. Yeah, share. Sharing is caring. Share it with a friend or a cousin.
Yeah, you said share. I was like, share? We're talking about share?
Let's talk about share. I like share because if you believe...
Yeah, I'm not going to do my
Do
singing.
it.
No, I'm not
Do
going to.
it.
I can't do it. No, I've got to be in the mood. I can't do it. Yeah.
He sings like Cher. It's like you're in the same room
It really
with
is. I know.
Cher.
You really, yeah. And
So,
you
yeah.
love it so much when I do that. Anyway,
Right. So, until next time, stay out of the mountains in light jackets and, you know, like keep your keys on you because safety first. Bye.
bye.